Allison Schaberg, Consolidated Planning Group here, and we are with the partnering today with the Down Syndrome Association of Houston. I've got Kate Davino here with us as well. So today your cameras and your videos are muted, so we can't see you and we can't hear you, but we do know you're there and we're glad you're here. And we do hope that you'll put your questions in the chat box as you have questions. We aim to answer as many as we can. So today's event is being recorded probably tomorrow, or on Monday. You guys will get an email with a recording of today's presentation, and we can also put out a copy of the slides too for your reference as well. Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs financial planning firm located in the greater Houston area. We serve families all across the state, all across the United States as it relates to special needs planning. But first, I just want to share with you that I come to you as a parent of special needs. I have 4 kids. I have 2 that have special needs. I have 1 that has transitioned into adulthood and 1 that is on the brink of transitioning into adulthood. And here at Consolidated Planning Group, we're all about advocacy, and we really put a lot of these webinars out in an effort to give you the tools and resources that you need to make some of the tough decisions that you need to make as it relates to planning. And as I was going through this, here I am a professional. I live it personally, and I'm a professional, and I know this stuff backwards and forwards. And what I will tell you is that as I was going through this transitioning with my daughter, I felt like the process was unnecessarily difficult, and that was with the knowledge and the background that I have. And so these are the reasons, that kind of the why behind we put these webinars out on a regular basis. So if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We're glad you're here. If you've seen us before or attended some of our other webinars, we're definitely glad you're back. We do have a YouTube channel, Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel, where we have a library of past webinars, and every topic that you could possibly imagine as it relates to special needs planning is out there. We have weekly webinars on a variety of different topics and have speakers come in. So we're your kind of one-stop shop for some of these resources. On our YouTube channel, we have partnerships with attorneys that are talking about guardianship, special needs trust, etc. So definitely check that out. So today, our special needs planning topic today, we're talking about Medicaid waivers, SSI eligibility, and preserving benefits. And this is a topic that I would say is, I would say that there's the most questions surrounding some of this. So for all of you that are here today and you're in Texas, we've heard this buzzword, I call it a buzzword, one that we hear all the time, about the Texas interest list. The waiting list is something else that people call it. And these are for the waiver programs in the state of Texas. And what we hear over and over and over again is that the waiting lists are long. Very, very long. And so that while that is true, one thing that is important is to know about the waivers, know how to get on the waiver interest list, and know that, the various waivers out there and what the eligibility is for these waivers. These waivers are really designed to waive off some of the cost associated with care, and it's designed to keep your loved one out of a residential facility to receive home and community-based services in your area. So there's a number of waivers out there. So first things first, and we're going to go into more details, but what we have on the screen here is a list of the waivers in Texas. So we have CLASS, which stands for Community Living Assistance and Support Services. We have a newer one that came to the fold, which is Community First Choice. We have Deaf, Blind with multiple disabilities, DBMD. We have Home and Community-Based Services, HCS. We have Texas Home Living, MDCP, the STAR Plus waiver, and also the Youth Empowerment Services waiver, the YES waiver. So let's kind of get in the weeds with some of these waivers. So these things are things that you can you can read a lot more about on a website called Navigate Life Texas, which is a website that is designed for families with special needs loved ones, and also for the HCS, kind of basically the Medicaid website. You can also find more details. Out there on those websites, you'll find PDFs and details and checklists and other things like what you have to do to qualify for each of these waivers. But we're going to talk about that a little bit today. But so if you want to go deeper and wider on what these waivers are and kind of get the FAQs on that, you can definitely download that yourself. We're free on those websites. So first things first, the class waiver. So this gives home and community-based supports to children and adults with related conditions. There are over 200 related conditions like cerebral palsy, spina bifida. The related condition must have occurred prior to the child's age 22. Most, not all, most of the state waivers in the state of Texas require, one of the requirements is intellectual disability, which is defined by an IQ of 70 or below, or an IQ of 75 and below, with multiple disabilities. So the deaf, blind, and multiple disabilities is just that. It gives services for children and adults who are deaf, blind, or have a related condition that leads to deaf or blindness, and they also have another disability, and that is the key. So they can't just be deaf and blind, they also have to have an additional disability for that. We have our home and community-based services, also known as HCS. This gives services and supports to children and adults with intellectual disability, ID, IDD, or a related condition who live with their families in their own homes or in small group homes with no more than 4 people. Whoops. So let's move on to medically dependent children. This is MDCP. This gives services to children and adults who are 20 and younger who are medically fragile, and it's an alternative to receiving services in a nursing facility. Again, these waivers are designed to waive off care to keep your child out of a facility. The STAR Plus home and community-based services, this gives services to adults over the age of 21 to keep them in their community and not in a nursing home or facility. We've got the Texas Home Living, and this gives services to children and adults who, with an intellectual disability or related condition, who live in their own home or their family's home. And then there is the YES Empowerment Waiver, YES. And this one is one that I do like to talk about because unlike most of the other waivers that we see in Texas, there is little to no waiting list for the YES waiver. So this is a Medicaid program that gives home and community-based services to children under the age of 19 with serious mental, emotional, and behavioral difficulties. And I like to say that this one is basically the alphabet soup initials that you might have: ODD, ADD, ADHD, BPD, all of the emotional diagnoses kind of fall under this. And this is a really great program. It's a wraparound program for services that are necessary for kids, and it is completely covered by the state. One thing that you should know, not from a waiver perspective, but there are over 102 Medicaid programs in the state of Texas. And if you go to the HHS website and you create a username and password, basically you can go through. They have a series of questions, and there's a tool on there which will identify what programs your child might be eligible for of the 102. So the good news is you don't have to research 102 Medicaid programs in the state of Texas to determine which one you should apply for. It will tell you which ones you may be covered by. So it's true from an income perspective, a lot of families don't qualify for Medicaid, but there are other programs that don't take as much of the income into consideration, that you may qualify for a program that you did not know that you qualified for. So it is worth kind of going out to that HHS website and just kind of taking a stroll and going through their tool to see what comes up. Okay. Waiver general eligibility. So most waivers for all ages, MDCP and STAR Plus, are the exceptions. There's financial eligibility for all waivers except for Texas Home Living it's within 300% of SSI. So right now for 2021, that's looking at 2313, and it does not look at the parental income. So that is important. But individuals must meet the functional eligibility criteria for the specific waiver. And so this is going back to the intellectual disability, the IQ of 70 and below, and other criteria. But it's to be determined. I want you to know that the eligibility, so when you're putting your child on these waiver or interest lists, the eligibility is not determined until an individual comes up to the top of the waiting list. So we talk to families all the time, and they are still hopeful and optimistic that maybe their child won't need a waiver. Maybe their child is going to be semi-independent or independent in the future. It is a good idea to have your child on the interest list anyway, because of the waiting list being 14 to 17 years. We don't have a crystal ball on how it's going to be in the future. And when you come up on the list, then they're going to determine the eligibility. And from there, if it's a fit, great. And if it's not, then that's okay too. But at least you're not 10 years down the road putting yourself on the waiting list at that point and having such a long wait. Some would even suggest that it would be smart for all parents to put their kids on the interest list when they're born. Not even just necessarily with the ones that we know are special needs, because some things come up over time or in their younger years that weren't identified right off the bat. Kate, it looks like we might have a few questions. Do you want to read those to me?
Yes, we have got, let's see. Is the 2313 per year or to have in their bank account at one time?
So that's income per month. Okay. So, and we're going to go in more to the SSI in a minute. So the SSI limits are $2,000. You can't have more than $2,000 to your name, but the 2313 is income. So it's the 300% of the SSI.
Okay, and that was the other one. I was able to answer the other question.
Okay, perfect. All right, moving on. Okay, so 2 funding paths for waivers. There's the interest list, the waiting list that we were talking about. This is a first come, first serve. It's statewide. The wait could be as long as 14 years. Honestly, I don't think anybody knows. I don't care who they are. I don't think anybody really knows how long the interest list is. I've heard longer, I've heard shorter. I think it really, really, really just depends, but all we know for sure is it is long. Okay. And so getting on these interest lists sooner versus later is definitely important. So promoting independence prevents and diverts individuals from institutions, and it also addresses crisis. And I think that this is a good point to talk about crisis diversion slots, okay? So these are things that are not widely talked about in the state of Texas, but there are such things called crisis diversion slots. And so these are, a crisis would be that the individual is at risk of being placed outside of the home due to any number of things. It could be because the child, the individual is a threat to themselves or others. It could be because their caregiver died. It could be because their caregiver or caregivers has been diagnosed with something horrible themselves, and they need to care for themselves, and the strenuous care for their loved one is more than they can handle. Those are examples of crisis. People, financial crisis where they're about to lose their home or the roof over their head. So there are times, and I've actually seen it, and I've actually had clients that were able to get a crisis diversion slot. We've seen grandparents that were guardians of their grandchildren, of their adult grandchildren, where, again, their health was failing, or they were no longer physically able to care for these loved ones, and they were able to get a crisis diversion slot. So it's not, it is definitely has to be qualified, and, fake crises don't count, but there really is some help out there for people that are in some real bad situations. So just know that, and we can help you get in touch with the right people as it relates to that. There is an organization out there called Every Child. They're based out of Austin, and they do help families get crisis diversion slots. And you can also work with your local authority, your local intellectual disability authority. For Harris County, it used to be called MHMRA, so a lot of people still call it that. It's called the Harris Center now. For Fort Bend County, it's Texana. Those are your local authorities, and those are also the places where you're going to call to get on these lists. The odd thing about these interest lists, it's been perplexing to me. I don't know why in this digital age that we all live in, why the interest list isn't electronic. Like, why can't we create a username and password, put our families on the list, log in and see where we are on the list and things like that? But it's not there yet. I don't understand it. You actually do have to call and get yourself on the list, and you actually have to call and follow up to find out where you are on the list. So maybe one day they'll update that. I think it would create a lot less work for the people that manage the list if it was digital like that, but it's not quite there yet. Okay, so the wait list, we were just talking about this a little bit ago. So the whether it's the LIDA or the LIDA, I don't know, the Local Intellectual Disability Authority. So one thing and some mistakes that people make here is how do we get on the wait list? Or people say, I'm on all the wait lists. Okay, MDCP class and the DBMD, they have a special phone number. So if you only went to your local authority and put yourself on the wait list, basically you're on the HCS, Texas Home Living, and the CFC wait list. But you're not on the class MDCP DBMD list unless you called that special number. So it is important, if you don't know, just take these numbers down. And again, we'll put the slides out so that way you can have, just the links and the different things that are on this presentation, and you can navigate that yourself. But just make sure that you're on all the lists, not just the HCS, Texas Home Living and Community First Choice. Kate, do we have a question?
We just have, let's see. Denise said that she just got off the class list after 13 years, and she wanted to say that it's very important to receive your calls and mail every year to confirm your address.
I couldn't agree with that more. I think it needs to go on your radar. Every year or 2 years, you want to confirm your address, your phone number, your email address. Technically, if they don't hear from you, they can take you off the list. This is what they say. They do make outbound phone calls. I haven't seen many emails, but they do make outbound phone calls. But it's very, very important. If you're moving, I know, our life is busy. We have better things. If I didn't have to be taken off the list, can you just leave me on the list, please? But it doesn't necessarily work like that. So it is very, very important to do that. Thank you, Denise, for mentioning that. Definitely agree on that. Okay, so we talked about the crisis diversion slot. So let me see if we missed anything on that. So diversion and transition from nursing facilities or specialized services, that is another one on here, but we basically already talked about the crisis diversion slots that are available out there. Okay, agencies that serve Houston. So we've got the HHS number, Harris County. There's Aging and Disability Resources, the Area Agency on Aging, and then we have the local authority that we mentioned as well, and the local mental health and behavioral authority, again, the LMHA, same number as the local authority. Now, one of the things that your local authority can do, they do some assessments and they can find out the level of need. So if you don't know your child's IQ, you might, want to reach out to your local authority, and they can do some testing, and they can also kind of score your loved one for the level of need for services that they may need. And it is a helpful report, but they will do those reports for you in that testing. Agencies that serve Fort Bend County, we kind of talked about them a little bit, but basically we're talking about Texana is the agency. So again, getting on the list, there's the 800 number for the class waiver, and then also you're calling your local authority to get on the interest list at the other places, because again, there's no perfect website that you can just go on there and put yourself on the list. Agencies that serve Pearland and Friendswood. So we've got these on the screen as well. And again, we'll get these out there to you so you have them handy. A lot of families already have this information, but in case they don't, we just wanted to include it today. Okay. So let's go deeper and wider, a little bit more about what we do. How do we get started with special needs planning? First things first, we say you want to work with a special needs planner to help you formulate your plan. When you have a special needs loved one, your situation is specialized. So we don't go to generalist for our specialized situation. One question that we get all the time is, what is the difference between a special needs planner and a special needs attorney? And that is a good question, because actually we have people calling us all the time about special needs law and kind of legal documents. And then the attorneys that we work with get calls all the time about the special needs planning and the financial side of the house. So we are the financial side of the house. I like to say they're the paper and we're the money, okay? They're the legal documents. There's a lot of legal documents that are necessary, especially if you have kids that are transitioning, such as guardianship, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, could be a supported decision-making agreement. And of course, we have the topic of special needs trusts that are necessary to have assets greater than $2,000 that won't be counted against you for SSI purposes. But as you're getting started, you definitely really want to gather all of the necessary planning documents. Special needs planning firms are nuanced in the special needs concerns and the rules and laws regarding benefits, both, social benefits, state and federally funded benefits. And it's important to know those rules, because you can accidentally disqualify yourself from or your child from necessary benefits. So when we're gathering all the planning documents, the things that we're looking at are Social Security statements. These are downloaded nowadays. It used to be that we would get a Social Security statement by mail once a year. They stopped doing that. But now what you can do is you can go on ssa.gov and you can create a username and password, and you can download you and your spouse's Social Security statement. And you might wonder, why does this matter? And this matters as it relates to Social Security for a dependent child. So we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Additional documents, anything financial tools, 401ks, 403bs, pensions, brokerage statements, bank accounts, life insurance contracts, disability policies, long-term care policies, anything that you have put in place personally outside of your employers, and also benefits that you have through your employers, are the important documents that come together. And the reason why is there is an intersection in financial planning, retirement planning, and special needs planning, right? Because when it comes to special needs planning, the funding for special needs planning comes from the parents. So as parents, we've been paying for the care for our special needs child all along. And while we have needs, they're going to have needs much longer past our death. So most families are going to spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. So that's a long time, and we have to plan for that. But when we have a special needs loved one that's going to need care for the rest of their life, it could be another 20 or 30 years after our death that we have to plan for them. And that's why it's so critically important that you get started as soon as you possibly can. So I always say it's not about looking back. It's not about beating yourself up about what you haven't done. You're here today, and that's what matters. It's about looking forward and kind of building on the foundation that you've already started. Maybe you've got a couple of blocks, maybe you got the whole foundation laid and you need to build up. But wherever you are, we kind of meet you in that journey. Another step in special needs planning is developing a letter of intent. And we definitely have webinars on this topic on our YouTube channel. But a letter of intent, I like to call it a family love letter. And this is, as parents, we eat, sleep, and breathe our kids. We know them backwards and forwards. We know what makes them tick. We know what makes them melt down. And a letter of intent basically documents everything. And we actually do have a template that we share with our clients. It's a PDF form fillable document where you can get all of this down. The thing is as parents, we just know this stuff. And, I kind of say jokingly, we have forgot more than anybody will ever know about this stuff. But the thing is if you become incapacitated or die, does somebody else know this? Does your spouse even know this? I've seen spouses, great marriage, great family, everything, but one works and one stays home with the kids, right? And so maybe some of these things are just known by the one that is staying home. So developing this letter of intent, this is going to have doctors. Where were they born? What schools have they attended? Names, address, and phone numbers of doctors, names and dosages of prescriptions, diagnoses, you name it, religious preferences, everything. This document should be a document that if not, we hope that a stranger would never be picking it up. But if a stranger had to pick it up, if something happened to both you and your spouse and the state was coming in to identify a guardian, that this document for whoever your future caregiver may be is something that they can take and run with and hopefully not miss too many beats. There's no way to not miss a beat, but maybe not miss too many. But also when it comes to planning, what we really want you to do is not only think about your vision of how you hope things will go for your special needs child, but what is your vision? What do you want your vision to look like for your own future, for your own retirement? Okay, so we work 25, 30, 35 years. We save, we squirrel money away for one day, this future retirement that's going to be so great and so grand. But a lot of families are so busy taking care of their loved ones that they kind of put their own needs and desires for retirement on the back burner, or they say it could just never really even happen. Build in that respite, build in those hopes and dreams that you had for yourself. You've worked hard for it. And there is really no real award for not getting a break, not doing some of the things that you wanted to do. In fact, I would say it's not an award at all. What we see is that caregivers that don't get the care that they need, that their health fails. And as our health is failing, we can't be the caregiver that we hope to be. So it is important to take care of ourselves and really look at our vision for our own selves and our own retirement and develop your special needs care plan around that. Kate, do we have a question?
We do. We just have someone wanting to confirm that you can help them with their retirement as well as the special needs planning.
Absolutely. A consolidated planning group. So the interesting thing as a special needs planner, we have all of the licenses that any other planner has. But additionally, on top of that, we are also nationally certified as a Social Security advisor. So we're able to help on such topics as Social Security for both retirement and for special needs. So we absolutely can do that. So this is probably one of the most important slides, and we probably get the most questions on this. But how is my child's care going to be funded in the future? So it's true. We can be independently wealthy and have millions of dollars, and we can fund a trust for a special needs child. But there's a lot of different buckets that we can fund care for our kids. The one thing that we want to do is we want to preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs. And this is somewhat of a confusing topic for many because many people make too much money, and although their child is clearly disabled, they haven't qualified for SSI and Medicaid. So they applied once because their child was disabled. They got denied, and so then they don't apply again. And that is a mistake. So what I want you to hear me say here is, while eligibility for SSI and Medicaid is based off of your assets when your child is under 18, when your child turns 18, it is based off of their assets, not yours. Even if they still live in your house, even if you still claim them on your tax return, it's based off of their assets. So first things first, Down syndrome is a presumptive condition through the Social Security Administration, a presumptive disability condition. So basically that means Down syndrome is a slam dunk as far as disability is concerned from the Social Security Administration. So if your child is not getting SSI and Medicaid at this time, what you need to know is that you want to apply for SSI and Medicaid the month that they turn 18. It doesn't have to be after their actual birthday. It's the month that they turn 18. So if their birthday's in September, you can have an appointment with the Social Security office anytime during the month of September. What my recommendation is that you schedule the appointment like 3 months in advance. I don't mean if it's in September, we're going to do this in June or July. I mean, you call in June or July to schedule your appointment for September, because the Social Security offices are still backed up. The Social Security offices have been closed for over a year and a half now. They are meeting with people by phone and by emergency only, in the example of death or other crazy emergencies, by appointment only. But mostly what's happening is these are phone appointments. So call and go ahead and get that scheduled ahead of time. The other thing that I would do is have your records in order: names, address, and phone numbers of doctors, diagnosis dates, history, whatever you have. You want to have that together. And another important thing is to understand that SSI and Social Security is a means-based program. And so what this means is that basically the individual cannot have more than $2,000 in their name. Okay, they can have one house, they can have one car, and they can have no more than $2,000 in their name. Now, if you're married and your child is under 18, you can have $3,000 to your name, one house and one car, and still qualify for SSI and Medicaid. So the next thing that I want to talk about that there's a lot of confusion surrounding is Social Security disability. So I've been talking about SSI and Medicaid. It's a means-based program. Social Security disability, also known as SSDI, also known as Social Security, is a worker-based program. Basically, you pay into the system for Social Security. This is the retirement system. This is the disability system. So truly, it doesn't make that much sense, because we think, okay, our kids are disabled, then they should get Social Security disability. That would only make good sense, and that's not how it works, because our kids haven't worked. They haven't paid into the system. So oftentimes when you apply for the very first time for SSI and Medicaid, they also apply you for Social Security disability and Medicare. And the sad thing is usually what happens, the first letter that you get is from the Social Security Administration saying that you've been denied. And I've literally had families call me crying, like, what do you mean? Are you kidding me? How could they say that my child is not disabled? Is this some kind of bad joke? And the thing is it's just confusing, because they throw these terms SSI and Social Security around, but you should get a letter from the Social Security Administration saying that your child was denied for Social Security because they have not paid in. This is a work-based program. They have not paid into the program, and therefore they would be denied for Social Security disability. The SSI and Medicaid letter comes later. I don't know why they do it backwards that way, but just so you know, as you're applying, you should expect this and look at the very top. The interesting thing is the letters look almost exactly the same, but at the top it says SSI and or Social Security, so that's how you know the difference. So one of the big things that's important as you're applying for benefits is understanding this means-based test for SSI and Medicaid, and again, it's the $2,000 to their name. So what do we do if we have more than $2,000 in our child's name? So the first things first is you can't hide the money. People ask me that all the time. So you can't necessarily hide the money, but you can spend down the money for the benefit of said child. The money that is in excess of $2,000 can also be placed in an ABLE account, which is under the tax code 529A for ABLE. An ABLE account is about achieving a better life for an individual with a disability. Their disability had to start prior to age 26. You can put $15,000 a year into an ABLE account, and basically you can spend it on anything as long as it's construed as achieving a better life for an individual with a disability. There is a Medicaid payback on an ABLE account, but the assets in the ABLE account will not be counted against the individual for SSI and Medicaid purposes. So that's one bucket that you can have money in above the $2,000. Another bucket that you can have money in is a special needs trust. So a special needs trust can have an unlimited amount of money, whereas an ABLE account you can only do $15,000 a year, and you can have up to $100,000 before you disqualify for SSI and Medicaid. A special needs trust, there is no limit on the amount of money that you can put into it on an annual basis, and there is no limit to the amount of money that can be in the overall account. So another way that people fund care for their special needs loved ones is through life insurance and assets that they have. So basically what I mean by that is most people, if you're like most people, they work, they save money for 25 to 35 years through their working years, through 401ks and other types of savings. The thing is, and yes, we can save a lot of money over the years. Some people get a late start, some people get an early start, the money compounds. But the thing about it is most people are going to need those assets in their retirement if they're going to spend 20 to 30 years in retirement. So then what happens? If I have a special needs child that's going to need care for 20 to 30 years after my life, how do I fund their care? It's going to be expensive. I've been paying for their care all along, but how do I fund it going forward? And oftentimes, so it's true you can be independently wealthy, but oftentimes what people do is they use their assets while they're alive to fund care for their children. They use their assets while they're alive to fund their retirement, but then life insurance, the beneficiary is left to the special needs trust for the individual with special needs. And so that is another way to fund care creatively. Life insurance passes tax-free to heirs, so it is I call it a smart money buy when it comes to planning. And the main thing I want to talk about here just for a second is the importance of beneficiaries. And this is something, kind of we're going above and beyond the waiver discussion here, but these are all topics that really matter that could mess your child up. So if they're getting a waiver and you accidentally leave money to them in the wrong buckets, you could make them lose their waiver, lose their Medicaid, lose their SSI, okay? So one thing that families do on a very regular basis, and if you did this, it's wrong, but you're not alone and it's easily fixed and you don't have to pay somebody to fix it, okay? So I'm talking about beneficiaries. So when it comes to life insurance, assets, bank accounts, etc., you can set up a beneficiary on these accounts. And oftentimes what people do is they name their spouse as the beneficiary. And if I'm dead and gone, and my spouse is dead and gone, then that's easy. I'm going to leave it equally to my children. And they name their children outright. And if you've visited us before and kind of heard some of our webinars before, we talk about this every time. You do not want to name your special needs loved one as a beneficiary outright. So in the example that your son's name is John Smith, we don't leave John Smith as a beneficiary on anything you have. It is critically important because if you leave John Smith more money than $2,000 and it goes directly to his name, then he automatically disqualifies for SSI, Medicaid, and could lose his waiver, okay? But how do we fund future care? We do future care cost estimates, and those cost estimates can be millions of dollars. We do it specifically tailored to your individual family and needs and desires and things like that. But it isn't, so obviously, little Johnny needs a lot more than $2,000 for his future care. So the way to do this is the beneficiary would be set up as the testamentary special needs trust for Johnny Smith, the third party special needs trust for Johnny Smith, etc. We can't leave it to his name. So what happens if I always use grandma and grandpa as an example here. Grandma and grandpa are affluent. They're not well, and they love their grandson, and they want to leave money to him, but they don't know all this SSI and Medicaid, so they leave money directly to John Smith. So what do we do? And the question that always comes up is, can I just not take the money? Can I disinherit the money? Can I give the money to somebody else? What can I do? And so the answer is no to all of those. You can't do that. So even if you don't take the money, but the money has been granted, it's still going to be counted against you. But at that point, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to seek a special needs attorney, and you're going to have to petition the courts and get a court order from a judge to have that money placed into a first-party special needs trust. So there's two types of special needs trust out there. And again, we have whole webinars on this on our YouTube channel, but there's a first-party special needs trust that is the child's money. This could be from a lawsuit. It could be any kind of award or any kind of thing that they got that's their money. It could be a scholarship that's their money. That's a first-party special needs trust. The difference between a first-party special needs trust and a third-party special needs trust is a first-party special needs trust, just like an ABLE account, has a Medicaid payback upon their death. So if something happens to the child, there's money in a first-party special needs trust, there is a Medicaid payback. So we want to avoid this if we can help it. So this is where we have meaningful conversations with loved ones, with family members that might be leaving money to our children, that it needs to go to a third-party special needs trust. So a third-party special needs trust can be set up as a beneficiary on a life insurance or investment account. The cool thing about the third-party special needs trust is there is absolutely no Medicaid payback for a third-party special needs trust. Kate, I think we have some questions. You want to ask them?
Yes. So we have someone's child stopped receiving Medicaid and SSI due to income. They were told they can start a trust. Where can she go? She can come to you guys, correct?
Yeah, she could come to us. So we're not the attorneys. We work with attorneys. We have very, very close relationships with several firms across the greater Houston area that serve the special needs community, but it also could be an ABLE account. So depending on the amount of assets, we can definitely help set up an ABLE account. But what we do is we definitely do free consultations where we can talk to you about your situation, understand your situation more, to understand, do you truly need a special needs trust at this time? Can you get by with a testamentary special needs trust, or could you get by with an ABLE account? Those are all things that we can help with for sure.
Okay, and the next question is, so our special needs kids can't have an IRA or a mutual fund that we set up for them?
If it's in the title of the trust, it shouldn't be in their name. No, it definitely shouldn't be in their outright name. So if we have the Now, one thing that I will tell you, I want to kind of go back to this, like a 529C. A lot of families have set up a 529C for their kids. Maybe their kids are going to college, maybe they're not. You can convert, and we can help with this. You can convert a 529C to a 529A. You can only do $15,000 a year. But the cool thing about converting that, so if you have a special needs loved one, if you convert the 529C to the A, remember, what you can pay for out of an ABLE account is very extensive, whereas you can pay for college and like some special school, but not a whole lot. You can basically pay for everything out of the ABLE account if it's construed as achieving a better life for an individual with disability. You can pay for college out of it as well. You can also pay for tutoring. A 529C doesn't pay for tutoring. I mean, you can pay for a vacation out of an ABLE account. So if you have assets like in a mutual fund or other accounts in your special needs child's name, that probably needs to change. And definitely, we can definitely help you with that. We have all of the licenses to help with that. Any additional questions so far?
That's all I have.
Okay, so the wrap up on the SSI and Medicaid is scheduled for the month that your child turns 18. You can call your local office and schedule that appointment a couple of months in advance. Go ahead and have your ducks in a row. If you're not applying for quite some time, just know that don't have more than $2,000 in your child's name. If you have more than $2,000 in your child's name right now, we can help with that with an ABLE account. And we can have some meaningful discussions about that. And again, you can spend down the assets. We don't hide the assets, but you can spend down the assets. Do they need a phone? Do they need a new computer? Do they need a new headset for this online learning that they're doing? If you can show, I mean, all of us have tons of expenses for our kids that are above and beyond anything, and you just show receipts for that, you're going to be fine. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of things today, and the thing is when it comes to planning, there's so many things that need to be on your radar, and what my heart is and why we do these webinars, the method behind the madness, is to ease this burden a little bit. It's a lot. It is a lot. It is overwhelming, and if you have been feeling overwhelmed by this, or putting it on the table or the shelf that I'm going to get to this soon when things settle down, and things just never settle down, you're not alone. So some of the things we can help with is how to develop a comprehensive special needs care plan. This is the dollar and cents, future care cost estimates. How do I estimate how much cost it's going to cost for the future for my loved one? Knowing that number allows us to help you plan and help you to reach your goals. Today, we were talking about the Texas waivers and interest lists. We spent a lot of time talking about SSI, SSDI, and understanding the differences. I love the way they throw these acronyms around. It's clear as mud. But we've talked about ABLE accounts, the importance of beneficiary designation. So if you're taking notes today, I always hope when you attend our webinars that you take 1 to 3 nuggets that you can take and implement in the next 24 to 48 hours. But if you're taking notes today, it is check your beneficiaries. This is old pension plans, 401ks, 403bs, life insurance through work, life insurance outside of work, bank accounts, etc. Check your beneficiaries. There's something called a primary beneficiary. There's something called a secondary or contingent beneficiaries. You want to check those and update those. And as I said, you don't have to pay us to help you do that. You can do it yourself. You can request the forms and you can do it yourself. Here is an important topic that I hadn't touched on yet, is directing child support to a first-party special needs trust. Guys, this is super important. If you're divorced or you find yourself going down that highway, in Texas, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes child support continues past age 18. And when that happens, in the eyes of the Social Security Administration, it is considered income to said child. So in order to maintain your eligibility for SSI and Medicaid, it is going to be important and necessary for that child support to be directed to a first-party special needs trust, so it will not be counted against the child as it relates to SSI and Medicaid. So if you're getting SSI and Medicaid and you're also getting child support, and the Social Security Administration hasn't caught up with you yet, hear me when I tell you, I promise you that they will. I've seen them go back and say, you owe us 7 years, right? You owe us this huge back pay amount. So if that's the problem, get it fixed. You can contact us. We can get you in touch with the right person to help you get that fixed. But just know, I hope you're not in that situation. I hope you don't find yourself in that situation. But if you do, this is a big, big deal and a big problem that it causes for families. So special needs trust and how to fund them, we've talked about that a little bit today. One of the things that I like to talk about is start touring facilities, maybe as early as the age of 15, transition programs, residential facilities, respite facilities, other programs. There are a ton of programs. We definitely have a PDF of programs post high school, transition programs, residential programs, et cetera, that kind of will talk about the different programs out there. But some of these waiting lists can be long. They were long prior to COVID. And with COVID, because they have minimized some of the numbers that they're having in their facilities, they could be longer. But what we don't want to see is that you find out that there's a 5-year waiting list when you start looking, right? So start looking early. Guardianship, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, supported decision-making, another buzzword that we hear all the time. Definitely have webinars with qualified attorneys on our YouTube channel for this. Guardianship can be applied for 6 months prior to the child turning 18. Some kids don't need guardianship. Basically, in a nutshell, the rule of thumb is if the IQ is 70 or below, they probably need guardianship. If they cannot sign a power of attorney or healthcare power of attorney and have the capacity to understand what they are signing, then I think guardianship or partial guardianship, there are such things as partial guardianship, may be of consideration. And some other people go down the highway of supported decision making, which is also an option in the state of Texas. But get educated, know that you can start this process 6 months in advance. You do not need to start this process. You are their guardian until they turn 18. You do not need to start this process prior to 6 months to them turning 18. We talked about the post-high school education options. We have some really great webinars on higher learning opportunities, certificate programs, university programs, community college programs, all throughout the state of Texas for your neurodiverse student. We have some great webinars on that. And then we have one coming up with the Greater Houston Disability Chamber. I believe it's September 24th, whatever that Saturday is, September 24th or 25th. So the waiting list for the community-based care facilities, again, they can be long. And I think we duplicated that, the child support paid to a special needs trust. Some of the services that we provide, we definitely do holistic, long-term special needs and retirement planning. And some of the other services, so we have some a la carte services as well at Consolidated Planning Group. One of the things that we're very proud of that we can definitely help you with is we have a specialized software for Social Security analysis. And with the parents' Social Security statements, we can analyze when is the best time to turn these things on. When you have a disabled adult child, which means their disability started prior to age 22, your child is eligible for 50% of your Social Security retirement. Your benefit doesn't go down, but they're eligible for 50% of your benefit when you retire or become disabled. So, for example, if your Social Security benefit is $3,000, when you retire, your disabled adult child is going to be entitled to $1,500 a month. So they're going to move off of SSI and move over to SSDI or RSDI for another term that they throw around. And upon your death, your child will receive 75% of your benefit for the rest of their life. So we have software that really has strategies in place and can tell you right down to dollars and cents how much more benefit to the household and family you will get when turning on Social Security at certain times. This is especially important for families that maybe have one person that has stayed at home and they will be drawing off of a spouse record. And also important for families that may have more than one special needs child. So that is definitely something else that we can help you with. It has definitely been a pleasure being with you here today. We're happy to talk. We want to work with you. We want to help you navigate these. We always have free personalized consultations. After today's event, you will get an email with our slides, a recording of the video, and a link on how to schedule with us so you can do that and kind of see our availability and kind of book that around yours. So you definitely have that opportunity. And having said that, it's definitely been a pleasure with you, being here with you today. And Kate, I'd like to turn it back over to you to see if we have any additional questions.
We do. Okay. What is the limit they can earn to still be able to qualify for SSI?
So, okay, so that is a very, very loaded question. But basically, so right now, let me answer it first by saying $1,310 per month. Okay, so right now, the earnings limit for $1,310, substantial gainful activity is what the Social Security Administration refers to that as. For 2021, the amount is $1,310 per month. So basically, if the individual earns more than $1,310 per month, they're not considered disabled, okay, because that's more than the substantial gainful activity. One thing that I didn't mention earlier is when you apply for SSI and Medicaid, if the individual is working at the time, they're going to be disqualified right off the bat. They're going to be denied. So just be aware of that when you're making your applications. $1,310 per month. So people can work and get SSI and Medicaid, but the SSI is going to be reduced for working. Okay, so I think that they maybe don't count the first $70 or $80 or something like that. But then what they do is they reduce the SSI payment dollar for dollar for earnings. But you can still earn money as long as you earn less than $1,310 per month and not lose your Medicaid. So some people say, well, then I shouldn't work. Well, if your child can earn $1,200 a month, that's more than the $794 a month. And if they still qualify for Medicaid, have at it. I mean, there are a lot of programs out there, and some of you might be participating in something called vocational rehab through the Texas Workforce Commission. But so that is basically the answer for that is $1,310 per month, and you should not be working at the time of your SSI and Medicaid application. Additional questions?
Yes. What problems will I have if I get guardianship after my son turns 18 due to no income because I'm not being able to work? SSI and Medicaid look at my income.
So you're not going to have any problems getting guardianship after age 18. So you could end up getting guardianship at age 26. I mean, it doesn't. So if you can't, if what you're saying is from an affordability perspective, I can't afford an attorney to get guardianship at this time, there are some services through the state of Texas. And there's some like Galveston County has a grant right now that I think they're covering guardianship for free, although I heard that they're not calling people back. But anyway, Disability Rights Texas, there are some other legal aid type companies out there, organizations that have help with guardianship for the indigent. And as far as income is concerned, your child turning 18, again, applying for SSI and Medicaid is based off of the child's assets, not yours, once the child turns 18. So there shouldn't be any problem there either.
Okay, and the last one. If a couple both retire, can the child with disabilities get half of both benefits?
No, they will get the higher one, basically. And our software can determine which way we should go about it, because there are, if a spouse's benefit is significantly less than the others, then they also can be brought up to basically drawing off of the other spouse's records. So our software is going to identify that, but they don't get both. Okay, so they'll get the highest one, but they don't get both, and you can switch. Okay, so maybe one person retires first and the other person hasn't retired yet, and so they're on one, but then the other person retires and that benefit is higher, then you can switch over to that benefit record as well. And another thing that you need to be aware of is that if a grandparent has guardianship of this loved one, or if another person has guardianship of this person, it could be off of their record. It also could be off of the step parent record. So whoever the kid's living with, and they, the person that is responsible for that family, it could very well be a step parent. It doesn't have to be a biological parent. It's usually a biological parent, but it could be a step parent. It could be a grandparent if they are living with them. Any additional questions?
That's all I've seen pop up.
Awesome. Well, happy Saturday, everyone, and happy the start of fall weather. I heard all the heat is coming back, but anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. It has definitely been my pleasure being here with you today. Reach out. We're happy to help any way that we can, and we thank you for taking your time on your Saturday to be with us today. Thanks so much, Kate. And you know what, Kate, you need to mention the Buddy Walk. Why don't you talk to them about the Down syndrome Buddy Walk real quick?
Yes, we have our annual Buddy Walk. It's our 21st year. On November 6th at Constellation Field in Sugar Land. It's a big event, not only for those with Down syndrome, it's for the whole community to just come out and support the families and the individuals with Down syndrome. It's a day where we promote inclusion and diversity throughout the city. So if you are out in the area or you want to just come and hang out with us from 10 to 2, Constellation Field, Saturday, November 6th.
If you'll send us the flyer on that, when we put the email out to everybody with today's slides and everything, we'll go ahead and put a flyer out to everyone for the Buddy Walk as well. We would love to do that. So just send that on over to Meredith and we'll get that out.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Take care.
Thanks, you too.
Bye now.